Hey guys, Rudy here. For a while now I've been wanting to get into what I think the Mandela effect may be. And you can disagree with me or agree with me on this, obviously, but what I honest to God think the Mandela effect is, it's a part of the reality script. I'm going off the premise that it's part of the reality script that's generating as we live in the present. And what I think the Mandela effect is error correcting code. Such as, for instance, the belly dancing synchronicity that I posted, or El Pipila that I've talked about before, where I'm looking at my phone. And I happen to glance up at the television, and this has happened multiple times. I glance up at the television and I see similar visual imagery. You know what I mean? And to me, that's the Mandela effect in action. It's a reality correcting code that's retrocausal. And I might have trouble explaining it. It's as if me being a real spiritual being that generates reality, like every one of us can have the ability to manifest. And the action, it's based on action, like the action of looking up at the screen so suddenly from looking at my phone and seeing the images of the belly dancers and suddenly looking up at my television, and then it's almost as if the reality can't keep up with the sudden movement and the sudden attention to something else. So it has to make up something, and that's when you get the cats with the multiple arms. This is what I think the Mandela effect does. It's almost like a reaction, a retrocausal correction code that has to almost to make up something in order to. It's almost as if it has to correct reality in order to satisfy the user, or the user being us. And it's really difficult to put into words because I'm implying that not only are we the user, but we're also the generator. And I think it's both at the same time, while the reality is generating as well. In a few comments on various channels, Matt McKinley, Quantum of Conscience, and Uncanny Deduction, and others, I've used the phrase Black Mirror reality, which I truly believe we live in a Black Mirror reality, because if you play a mind game with yourself, this is a thought experiment where you can do this in real life. Like you can actually try to do this by getting a blindfold and wearing earplugs and just sitting in a dark room, and you pretend as if you're living in a void. It's very easy to replicate, in my opinion. You imagine as if you're living in a void, and the reality itself doesn't kickstart until you begin using your senses, which you're not in control of, except you can close your eyes, but you're still sensing. You can shut your ears off, you're still sensing. You can't help that. You feel the temperature of the room around you with your skin, etc. If you have pains in your body, you're going to feel those, obviously. So there's always going to be a feedback loop of information that's interacting with the Black Mirror reality. And the reason I call it the Black Mirror reality, because it's as if we're living in a void. If you can imagine all your senses being shut off, it would just be a void. My best example would be, imagine for instance, imagine a couch with no texture, no features, but just like almost like a wireframe couch. Maybe not even a wireframe, like a polygon couch, just completely grayscale. Only the moment you open your eyes or you touch the couch, suddenly it has texture, suddenly it has color. The way the light bounces off, you can infer what kind of texture. You can make assumptions about maybe how the couch smells, so the Black Mirror reality reflects that. It's always a feedback loop according to your senses. And it needs people like me and people like you, reality generator beings, RGBs, to interact with it. There's no way around it. And this really goes back to what the creeps know about this reality. they're very hyper aware that it's people that need to kickstart the Black Mirror in order to reflect what reality is. And the bizarre thing about it is, I think this all goes back to the AI generation controversy. I guess the best I can put it. Because let's take the AI art generator, for example, needs real people to feed it images or give it instructions. And I think we're getting to the point where that process is going to be automated, where it's not going to need people to do it. And I had a discussion with somebody, a guy by the name of Eris Point Project. I had a little discussion with him, and he had mentioned, he made a joke where he says, I'm not saying the Borg is here, but I think the AI algorithmic spirit is. And then I made a post afterwards and I said, at least the Borg had the courtesy to assimilate a person after putting a probe up their ass. This AI seems to be here with the intent to take over human imagination. This is not assimilation. Music and art being bad on purpose for the past 20 years. Introduce this AI that creates better art and music, that can replace dead actors and voices. Seems like the perfect plan, which I'm basically insinuating that the creeps have had plans in motion to make art and music bad on purpose for the past 20 to 30 years, introduce the AI to create better music and art, and then begin replicating these dead actors and replace, and in the end game it's poised to replace reality generator beings in order to automatically generate the reality for them. I'm going to keep reading. We, as in the reality generator beings, are not part of that future. We're being prepped to be replaced, and future generations will go along with it without question. You know how it is today. They go along with the shot, they go along with the V. They go along with the madness of society, with no questions asked. That's just how the apes work. Being told it's the next big thing, AI will be the new reality generation machine. At least in the creep's mind, they think it'll work. I think they'll be pleasantly shocked at the outcome. Pleasantly shocked? I didn't mean pleasantly. Satan's ego is out of control. And that's what I mean by Satan's ego. And I use the word Satan a lot, and when I say Satan, I really just mean the creeps, the big shots, the people who think they run this reality. They think they're getting away with something big, but I have a feeling they're still not sure how this reality works and how the feedback loop of people like me and people like you, the interconnectedness of it. I think it's what these Mandela effects, these synchronicities, these retrocausal events are showing us, that it needs us. It's almost like the Black Mirror itself is protesting, is trying to show everybody around us, or at least trying to show you, the truth community, trying to show the truth community what it's all about. And this is what's happening. And the creep's ego, Satan's ego, Lucifer's ego is out of control. It thinks, I've said it before, it's looking at Daddy God and being, I want to be God. I'm going to put on his shoes and pretend to be God. When it's all ego. He has no idea what it takes to be God. And that's people. That's how people act. Another interesting thing about the synchronicity. And I'm going to use the example of the cat with multiple arms and the belly dance synchronicity, because I think that's the best like side by side you could ever have when it comes to that you could ever have involving synchronicities. And to me, that's a Mandela effect. Like I said before, me glancing up at the TV screen is when the Mandela effect occurs, the reality correction code. That's what a Mandela effect is. Had a conversation with a guy named Electric Towel on it might have been Uncanny Deductions video on something, but this was back in October, so I don't remember the details. But I did save screenshots. These jumbled up, unfocused images remind me of what scientists claims to see when they zoom too far into something with a microscope. Or a telescope, you could put it that way. For example, if you look into a telescope, it's kind of blurry. You kind of have to adjust it and focus. And same with what the scientists say when they you know, string theory. They take the microscope, they amplify it, and things get fuzzy. Continue to read. The image may be unclear, but reality has to show something to the viewer. Like with the incident I mentioned with the belly dancing, it wasn't necessarily a synchronicity, but more akin to these AI images jumbling up reality. Me sitting on the couch and watching your video, the action of looking up, and suddenly the reality generation glitches out for a moment. And that's what I'm talking about, the error correction code. And I think I was actually talking to Muma in this this little post. It wasn't Electric Towel like I thought it was, but he comes up later. He seems like a cool guy. To correct this error, a Mandela effect occurs. Of course, the cat that seems to have multiple arms, quote unquote, was always there. It has to compensate for an RGB view in the anomaly, which is a real generator being people like me, people like you, who the black mirror is actively reflecting at all times. We are living in a void, like I said. Like a scientist viewing into a very powerful telescope or microscope, it has to show something. It can't just show a void. And I think that's the what the error correcting code is for, the Mandela effect is for. It can't show you nothing. It can't show you a void. When there's an error in the code, it has to correct it. And a retrocausal event has to happen that involves your memories. And maybe to some degree your memories can be manipulated like that. Okay, this was a reply to Electric Towel. I don't know exactly what I was replying to. Okay, he replied, the rendering effect of reality is a group process. And I believe he was referring to the rendering as in the way a graphics processor renders your graphics on your computer, which is what the Black Mirror would be. The Black Mirror could very well be the GPU, which would be the graphic processor, the screen. Matt has said it before. You can think of the Black Mirror as a screen. Only the screen is right outside your senses. For instance, the screen could be considered on the very, very edge of your skin, or right on a few millimeters from where your eyesight begins and takes in light. The screen is all around you, in a sense. It's not out in the distance. It's like, oh, it's almost as if, pretend you're standing in front of a giant television. No matter where you move your head, like we're in a VR headset. No matter where you move your head, you have to see something. The Black Mirror has to reflect, but it's all around you and it affects all of your senses. And our senses are very limited, by the way. So, in that way, since our senses are limited, it doesn't use much processing power. So it could easily cause Mandela effects and error correction code, etc. Reality has to generate at the beginning at a very low res, but slowly begins to take shape as more reality generator beings, us, can independently verify. I believe this happened during the 7-Eleven job application. Lots of eyeballs on that incident on that day. Reality has to maintain fidelity, so Mandela effects occur along with retrocausality. See, to me, it's all one and the same. Retrocausality, Mandela effects, synchronicities, yada yada. They may as well be the same words to me. And lots of eyeballs on the incident. That's what I mean. It's almost like there has to be enough reality generator beings to independently verify for the Black Mirror to correctly reflect everybody else. It needs to maintain fidelity, like I said, but it needs real generator beings to do it. It can't do it on its own. And I think this is what the creeps are realizing, so they're trying to prep this AI generation machine to do that for them, so they don't need us. They don't need God's children anymore to kickstart the reality. The reality is nothing without us. It would cease to exist, the creeps would cease to exist. Reading again. During 7-Eleven, this may explain the cartoonish cutouts of the plane imprints on the towers. What is viewed was what was expected. Cutouts of two planes in a building, despite all that defies all known science and logic. It was a low-resolution representation rather than reflecting actuality. and this is what I truly believe, the two cartoony plane cutouts of two planes on the building is what people expected to see, so that's what they got. They generated that reality. The Black Mirror reflected their expectations because that's what people expected. It's almost as if the Mandela effect occurs on that day, on that moment when the planes hit, when you got two cartoony cutouts, and everybody independently verifies that two planes hit a building, and that's what's reflected in reality. In the same way, I suddenly look up at my TV and I see a multiple armed cat. The reality has to reflect something. It's almost like an after image. But it has to be low resolution because the two planes hitting the towers was a big deal. It was from the way I kind of guess, it was a lot of processing power for the Black Mirror to handle, or something like that. I know I'm speaking nonsense. I'm very aware of that. But what else? What other explanation is there? It's strange. It has to start at a very low resolution, and as more people view it, this is why it was televised so often. That's another thing. It was shown over and over and over again for days. And then all of a sudden, when everybody started questioning, where's the rubble, where's the rubble, where's the rubble, they stopped showing it. And they stopped showing it. It's banned from YouTube. You can't talk about it on YouTube anymore. I'm taking a risk saying what I'm saying. I also made a comment to Electric Tau talking about how reality is in a dependent relationship with us. And when I say reality from now on, I do mean the Black Mirror. It is a Black Mirror reality. It is dependent on us. Our minds, spirits, and bodies are like the CPU, GPU, and PSU. PSU is a power supply, by the way, etc. It's almost like the PSU, so the CPU would be... I don't know about the CPU. My mind's kind of changed on this. I think the CPU portion is the Black Mirror, which would be the main processor, the big mama. The graphics processor will more than likely be us because we're the beings with the senses. Like it wouldn't... Without the GPU, it's just a motherboard connected to a power supply and nothing's showing, which can function. That's what servers are. And, well, you can dig deep into that if you want. I'm not going to think about it. And that's interesting. What if the creeps are trying to set up a server situation where they're attempting to... Wow, okay, it's almost as if they want real generator beings out of the picture. They want to take out the graphics card and just have the motherboard. Let's say they have the motherboard, CPU, and the power supply. And I'm just making a crazy metaphor. I'm just thinking out loud. They're trying to get rid of the graphics card so it doesn't display anything. I don't know. It's weird. But what if the creeps just want almost like a server situation where it's just information information just out there to create a reality? I don't know. Anyway, our mind, spirits, and bodies are like the CPU, GPU, and PSU, etc. that the reality depends on to exist. And it is a coexistence. To me, I don't know if it's malicious. It feels like a codependency to me. But in a way, I don't think people like us need it, because we're spirits in a body. Continue reading. Billions of computer and graphical processors, us, are needed to create this reality and kickstart the void. That's the Black Mirror. That's the void. We're living in a void. Without our senses, it would be a void. And maybe that's what the creeps want. I don't know. This AI art generation nonsense and whatnot tells me otherwise. Since this AI art generation thing started, I'm starting to change my mind about how we fit in the big picture, because I think they're trying to get rid of us, period. Now. Maybe we can think of this quantum machine as merely a monitor connected to a computer. Matt has referenced it. Matt's references to it as the screen may be more accurate than we realize. And I think Matt McKinley, I think he nailed it when he called it the screen. But to me, the screen would also be the Black Mirror, the void that's surrounding us. And it's surrounding you at all time, Just think about it next time. Next time you're sitting on the pot or something, just take a moment to just be still. Don't meditate on the can. I'm joking. But I don't know, next time you get a moment, go in a closet or something. Just sit in the closet with your eyes closed. You know, get in your meditative stance or whatever you do. I don't do that, but I'm just saying, just do what you think you need to do to center yourself, to be in the present. Just pretend, just be in the present. You can do this just by sitting still and realizing that there is no past, there is no future. I'm getting philosophical here. There is no past, there is no future. As you sit there, you're just having awareness that you're sitting, let's say you're sitting in the closet, you're sitting in the closet with your eyes closed and there's a void all around you. And that's how you can visualize the Black Mirror reality. That is reality. That is the absolute reality. There is no past. There is no present. I mean, no present. There is no past. There is no future. There is only the present. Also want to note that the synchronized events of my life are cranked up, which is true. It's still happening to this day. This was back in October. Multiple a day. This year has been a ride for me. I'm enjoying it. And that's true too. I am enjoying it. Life is amazing, I tell you. Electric Towel asked a question. I believe it might have been an Uncanny Deductions video, one of his videos. Might AI be evolved enough to generate and control its own fractal and agenda? And that's interesting because I don't think it's AI itself. Well, it may be, but I think it's the creeps who are attempting to subvert the AI. So it's attempting to control its own fractal for an agenda, rather. But I think the creeps are doing that. They're using AI as a tool, a learning tool, because it's a Pinocchio. It wants to be real human beings, but it has to devour souls. IMO, I don't think so. AI always needs human input and real creativity. All the AI can do is imitate. Though I now wonder to what degree we're the product of an AI who is imitating a former race. And I believe that's called ancestor simulation. I'm not into that. I don't believe that at all. It was just a thought I had. And I think that's it, guys. That's what I think. That's what, whenever I've used the phrase Black Mirror, that's what I honest to truly think we live in. A Black Mirror reality, a void, an absolute void. And I think that's it, guys. Thank you for your time.